know as an American moving to the Czech Republic in 2026. A big portion of our clients are Americans, and we've been working with Americans the last 14 years. So I want to share with you some of that knowledge and experience we've gained during that time. And I will be following a structure of an article, detailed article we've written about this topic on our website, and I will link it in the description. So I will be sometimes looking down to my notes, and you will find more information in the article, but I will also tell you a different set of information here live. So it's best if you listen to me first and then go to the article, read through everything, and it will make more sense. So let's see what topics I'll cover. I will give you 4, I think, steps which you should follow, and that should hopefully make this easier for you, the move to the Czech Republic. So we'll go through 4 steps. 1, defining your goal. 2nd, all the general visa options you have as an American moving to the Czech Republic. So that will be pretty detailed. Step 3, clear timelines. So what you should expect in terms of how long it will take to prepare everything, how long it will take to get it approved, and what you need to do after approval. And then the last step or last topic will be kind of some tips, practical tips, and some issues you should keep in mind. Also, generally the cost of such a move and what you should not forget. And then some final thoughts on that topic. So let's go. And guys, if you have any questions about this topic, moving to the Czech Republic as an American, write your questions in the chat and I'll be happy to answer them live. That's part of why I'm here. So step number 1, if you want to move to the Czech Republic from the US, define your goal, because there are plenty of different ways on how to approach it, what kind of visas you will get, where to apply, how to apply. I will get to all that later. But it all comes back to one thing, and that's what's your long-term goal. Like, are you moving to the Czech Republic just for a year because you want to have like a gap year between your studies, and then you know that you will be going back to the US? We will have to take a different approach than if you're a family and you want to move here forever. We will need to take a different approach if you don't really care if you move here or not, if it happens or not, or if you really want to make it happen because you cannot stand it anymore in the US and you just want to move to the Czech Republic. So all these and many more things you should consider and you should think about before you actually start doing something. Because, I mean, a lot of our clients just like board a plane, land in the Czech Republic, come to our office and say, hey guys, take care of me, I want to get a visa. Which is fine, we can usually make it work. But it depends on how adventurous you are, because it's not for everyone. Not everyone can just board a plane and like, okay, whatever happens, happens. And especially now with the new electronic systems which track your 90 days, where overstaying, which used to be very normal and it gave you a lot of flexibility, is now basically not possible anymore. Then planning in advance and thinking about the steps and what you want to accomplish in the long run is very, very important. So that's step number 1. As for the options that kind of follow the long-term plan, because I will take you through all the different options, and then I will kind of relate it to the long-term thinking, like how is it important or why is it important. So the most common way how Americans get here is through the freelancing visa or business visa, živno visa, self-employed visa, whatever you call it. It's basically about you setting up a business in the Czech Republic and moving to the Czech Republic based on that. Now, very important thing here, I will not go into details because we would spend a couple hours here, and I've done other videos about this topic where I go into details. So very briefly, the business visa is a great option for Americans if you are an English teacher, or if you're willing to do it for some time before you find something else. And yeah, because when you're applying for a business visa, you need to prove that you have a solid business plan for the Czech Republic. And solid for English teachers means you should have like 2 or 3 language schools willing to sign a letter saying, yeah, once you get approved, we'll be happy to work with you as a freelance teacher. Like literally, if the letter says this and you get 2 or 3, you'll be fine. But if your business plan was something else, like starting a restaurant or a bar or some other business, or if you don't have a business plan at all for the Czech Republic, if you're just a general freelancer or you work online and you don't really have any Czech clients or don't want to have any Czech clients, that's a completely different situation and the visa will be very, very difficult to get. So business visa is great if you are an English teacher. If you're not an English teacher, it might get a bit tricky. Let's see, this is very helpful already. I'll be sure to check out other videos too. So it's you joined. Okay, perfect. So the live stream is for you. So if you have any questions during the time, please ask and I'll be happy to answer those. And thank you also guys for watching from Zanzibar or Pakistan. If you have any questions, ask, but about the topic of Americans moving to the Czech Republic. This is a topical live stream, so I will not be doing like general Q&As, but just related to this topic. So option number 1, that was the freelance visa. Second, which is kind of related to that, and it's good for those freelancers who meet the criteria and don't have any Czech clients, is the digital nomad visa. There is a lot to say, so I don't know like how to condense it so I don't spend 10 minutes explaining that. But generally, there is no digital nomad visa per se. It's not a new visa category. It's just either the business visa or so-called other visa applied for under the digital nomad program. So if you're a freelancing digital nomad and you meet the requirements, I'll get back to it in a second, you would be still applying for the business visa just as a digital nomad. If you are an employed digital nomad, meaning that you have one employer in the US or somewhere else, then you would be applying for the other visa based on being a digital nomad. Now, what it means to be a digital nomad from the perspective of Czech law. That is that you must be working in IT or marketing only. These 2 fields, nothing else. So it does not apply to general digital nomads. It just applies to IT specialists, so software developers, all these kind of professions, and marketing specialists. And then you also kind of need to have one big client or one big employer. It does not work for, like if you have your like e-commerce website and like you sell to private customers, then you cannot really get the digital nomad visa because you must have one entity, one business, sign a letter for you saying that they will be paying you enough money, that they let you work from the Czech Republic, and that they will be doing it during the next at least 1 year if you're applying for a 1-year visa. So if you have multiple small clients, that's not very realistic to get the digital nomad visa. But if you're in these 2 fields, IT or marketing, and you have like one big employer, this is a great type of option because it does not require you to have any ties to the Czech Republic as all the other visas do. Then employee card, that's the third option, and that's actually great for you, and it's getting bigger for Americans now, although it's not as pink. Do you say it's pink or like pink glasses or something? That it's not as great as as people sometimes try to make it look, but it still is a great option. Employee card basically is a residence permit based on local employment in the Czech Republic, which means the downside of that is that you must first find an employer in the Czech Republic. You cannot apply for an employee card if you don't have a job secured. It's not like an open work permit that allows you to work wherever you want, but you always need to find one employer willing to help you through the process and wait for you during the whole approval time. On the other hand, if you manage to do that, even if it's like your friend's company or someone and someone's gonna help you with that, it's a great option because it's very straightforward now for Americans, because Americans have free access to Czech labor market, which means that as long as you have a valid visa or residence permit, you can work freely, any job, anywhere. So the employee card process is simplified, streamlined, and easier and faster. So it's a great option, and it also gives you plenty of benefits. It's for 2 years instead of 1 year. It's really good. The kind of catch there is that you first need to find an employer. Similar to that would be a blue card, but that's there is a limitation of what kind of jobs you can do under the blue card. Plus, the process is more complicated because the free access to Czech labor market does not apply there. So, if you want to move here for employment, then the employee card is the way to go. Another option for Americans would be student visa. Actually, it was kind of surprising for me, but a lot of Americans come to the Czech Republic to study. To be honest, they usually come to study the University of New York, of Prague, and the Anglo-American University. So it's not that much that they would come study a Czech university. They still come to study American schools, but like for half of the price they would study in the US. Plus they live in beautiful Prague and they can travel all around Europe easily. So I guess it makes sense. Of course, some Americans also study like Czech public schools, but majority of Americans come for the Anglo-American University or the UNIP, the University of New York. And if you're in the age that you can still study or you want to still study, then it's a great option because it's one of the easiest ones to get approved. The limitation there, obviously, the school only starts in September or potentially January, February if you start with the summer semester. So you would need to time everything well to catch these deadlines. Family reunification, yes. In most cases, you can bring your family members as well if you have some. So if you are the main applicant, you come here as a student, you can bring your spouse and 2 kids. You cannot really bring partners, unmarried couples. The family reunification does not really apply there because we have these requests sometimes as well. But generally, close family members, meaning spouses and kids, can join you basically whatever type of visa or residence permit you have as the main applicant. They can always follow. That's kind of the main things. And you will also hear somewhere the other type of visa that you can use it as a retirement visa, which is bullshit, honestly. But it used to work 10 years ago, maybe. Then a lot of Americans just showed their pension and the Social Security pension. They wrote a letter saying that they want to live in the Czech Republic because it's beautiful and their great-grandparents were from around here somewhere. And it used to work. Now it doesn't work anymore. But you can still use the other purpose of stay, either for the digital nomad visa or if you come here to study a non-accredited program of a university. So these are the options. And now, the timelines and the procedures, let's say, because as Americans, you can submit your, any visa application. Oh, one more thing, sorry. We don't mention it in the article, but there is also something called a partnership visa, which applies if you're an American or any like third country national, but in this case, an American, and you're dating an EU citizen. So if you have a Czech girlfriend, boyfriend, or Dutch girlfriend, boyfriend living in the Czech Republic, or French, whatever, you can apply for a special type of residence permit called a partnership visa, where you get a residence permit for 3 years just based on your relationship. It only applies to couples which are in a long-term serious relationship similar to a marriage. So it does mean that if you just met online or you've been dating for 3 months, you can get it. But if you've been together for around a year, you have pretty high chances. So that's one option I also wanted to mention, because we also have couples like that, and that simply simplifies everything. So yeah, but now to the standard visa applications. Whatever long-term visa or residence permit application you're applying for, the application always must be submitted through a Czech embassy. So you cannot just come to the Czech Republic and submit it here somewhere. That would be possible for the partnership visa, but not for all the other options. So you need to decide where you want to apply. As American citizens, you can submit your application through any Czech embassy in the world as long as they accept visa applications. So if you want to, for example, Lynn, if you want to do it in the US, you can. In the US, there is just this weird rule that you can only submit your application to the embassy which is responsible for your state. I've done another video where I go into details of that. Why are the Czech embassies in the US so weird, and what are the specifics, and why you should ideally not apply in the US, but I'll just touch the topic here briefly. But the point is, you have to submit the application to that one specific embassy which is responsible for the state where you live. So you cannot really choose if you go to New York or Washington, D.C. or Los Angeles. You always need to go to the one which is responsible for your state. Or you can come to Europe and submit your application somewhere in Europe. For some reason, we still receive questions or like emails saying, okay, I want to come to Europe and then I will submit my application in Bratislava or in Berlin or Vienna. That used to be possible, but that stopped like 4 years ago. So if you guys, when you're reading some articles online, make sure that they are recent because what was valid 4 years ago is not valid anymore in many cases. So you cannot apply in Berlin or Vienna or Bratislava. The only place where you can apply in the EU within the Schengen space is Dresden in Germany, but it's actually pretty convenient because it's just 2 hours drive from Prague, so it's very easy to get to, very convenient. But you're not limited by that because you can submit your application in London, for example, or in Dublin, Ireland, or Serbia, wherever. As long as the embassy accepts visa applications, you can submit it there. Now, the differences or the specifics of applying in the US versus applying in Europe. Again, I've done a whole video about that, so there is a lot to cover, but briefly. Applying in the US has the advantage that A, you are applying at the home turf, so it's very convenient for you, even if you have to fly, 6 hours to the consulate, which is often the complaint of many of our clients. It's still easier than like driving or flying to Dublin and like figuring out like 3 different countries when you're passing by or passing through. So it's easier, even if it means like traveling for a couple hours or whatever. It's still in the US. You know how everything works. You know how to get to places. You have like the local money, so it's just easier for you to submit the application there. Second thing is, if you do it this way, that you only come to the Czech Republic when you get approved, which means that you're not risking anything. So if you get denied, you're still in the US. Okay, it didn't work out, sucks, but okay, you're still there. But there is no but. So you just submit the application there, you wait there until you get approved. And if you get approved, then you just pack your things and come to Europe, everything's safe. The disadvantages of applying in the US there are 2 main that come to mind. First is that the Czech embassies in the US are really weird. In most other embassies, you just go to the embassy, submit the application in person, you get a confirmation, everything's kind of easy. In the US, most embassies do not want to speak with you, they do not want to see you, they just tell you to mail your application in. And that might sound like an advantage, but it's not really, because it often creates a lot of confusion. You forget something, you don't send them exactly like $123.15, and they return the application because you didn't have the correct application fee amount. Plus, yeah, it's just very inefficient way of dealing with things, like mailing all your documents and all your original documents by UPSP or whatever you call it, you call your postal service there. I would definitely not trust with like super important documents like my marriage certificate or something to a post office. Maybe it's different in the US, but I would not send any important documents through mail in the Czech Republic. Second thing is that embassies do not make decisions, because embassies fall under the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, but all the decisions are made by the Ministry of the Interior. So it's even completely different ministries. What it means is that the embassy will take your documents, the ones you mailed to them, and they will mail them physically to the Czech Republic, which means that there will be a delay of a couple weeks from when you submit the application before someone actually starts checking the application, which means that the whole approval process will take longer than if you submit your application in Europe. Also, the whole preparation will take longer because you will need to send documents back and forth. Let's say you work with us and we are helping you with the application. You will need to get an FBI criminal check in the US, physically with apostille, all that. Then you need to DHL it to us. Then we get you the trade license, the translations, all that. And then we DHL everything back to you, only for you to just mail it, post it to the Czech embassy in the US, and for them to mail it to the Czech Republic. So the whole process will just take significantly more time if you're applying in the US, and it will be more complicated. And before I get to applying in Europe, then let me see if there are any questions related to this topic. So hello. Just asking, do you know Stray Kids? Nope. My brother told me 3 years almost, he said he applied for me a work visa. I'm in India. So guys, I'm only answering topical questions today. So Americans moving to the Czech Republic. I'm not answering any questions than that. Please read my question. I've been refused from Schengen. Okay. Still need FBI check, or do you know if state level works or now? Okay. Well, that's one of the differences between applying in the US, applying in Europe. If you apply in Europe, the only thing you need to do is to go to the US embassy in Prague, raise your hand, swear that you're a good citizen, and you get the document on the spot. $50, done in 5 minutes. And you can immediately use it for your trade license or for the visa process as well. If you're in the US, then you need to get the FBI criminal check. The local level is not enough. You must have the FBI, and it must be apostilled, and then it cannot be older than 3 months or 90 days. And you must ship it to the Czech Republic physically so we can get it translated and then use it for all the processes here, and then ship it back to you to the US. So possible, you definitely need the FBI one. Possible, but it just adds to the to like extending the timeline if you're applying in the US. So advantages of applying in Europe. The main one, everything's smoother, faster. Preparation is faster because you're here. Now, for example, this difference between a couple weeks of getting, maybe a couple months of getting the FBI criminal check, apostilled, sent to the Czech Republic, translated, sent back to the US, and compared to like, hey, I'm good, done at the US embassy. So that all adds up time to your application. So applying in Europe makes it smoother, faster, for some documents easier to get, for example, the proof of accommodation. On the other hand, the main disadvantage of applying in Europe is that you're limited by your 90 days. And while it used to be pretty normal and pretty safe to overstay your 90 days in the past, now I definitely cannot recommend that, because now the whole Schengen space is introducing the EES system, the entry-exit system, which is electronic tracking of your passports, which means that they will know that you've overstayed. Before that, it was pretty safe, because the only way for someone to find out if you've been overstaying or not is to stop you, check your passport, check the stamps, and calculate the dates. Now everything will be instant, electronic, so they will know. Probably they will not hunt you down, but they will see it in the system, and it could be, if you're overstaying, that could be an easy reason to deny your visa, because you've already broken the first law while still even like waiting for the visa. So that's the main downside or main disadvantage of applying in Europe, that if you want to do it, there are two things. You either must plan it perfectly, and then it still might not work out. But if you plan it well, it might. Second option is that you need to be ready to leave the Schengen space and wait somewhere outside. You don't have to go back to the US. You just need to go outside of the Schengen space. So to the UK or Montenegro, Serbia, somewhere outside of the Schengen space. Serbia is not. And you have to wait it out there, which sometimes might mean just a couple days. Sometimes it might mean a couple months. So you need to be ready to spend a few weeks in some like sunny country, like Montenegro, for example. Yeah, so that was applying in the US versus applying in Europe. Let's see now the timelines. Yeah, okay. Let's do this. Generally speaking, or the first thing you need to count with, or first, let's say the planning part, or like finding out which way, deciding which way you want to go, where to apply, that's kind of individual, obviously. But generally what we do if you work with us is that we arrange a consultation where we discuss your situation, your timelines, your long-term plan, and then based on that we can start planning everything. So this first phase might be pretty swift if you know you want to do it, or it might take months or years. We also do that sometimes, that we speak with someone now, knowing that they want to move in 2-3 years time, which at least gives them an idea of what the process looks like. But obviously 3 years from now, everything will be very different, because there are so many changes in Czech immigration that it will be a bit different process 3 years from now, but at least the general idea is good to have. So yeah, this is hard to quantify how long it will take, depends on your situation. Then collecting all the required documents. We generally count with 1 to 2 months if you're in Europe, or if you plan everything in advance and we can work with you before you come here. If you want to do everything from the US, it will be longer. So I would say 3 months maybe. If you do it on your own, you can. I'm not necessarily promoting our services and saying that you have to do it with us. You don't have to. But very likely it will take you even longer, because you will make some mistakes. That's kind of inevitable because there is so many details. If you don't know, you don't know. You can get lucky and just like ace it first try, but for most people it doesn't work like that. Some people already, for example, with the FBI check, you could get the local one instead of the FBI one. So then you send it to the Czech Republic, try to get the trade license. They tell you, okay, this is not enough. You need to get another one. Happens. Or you get the FBI criminal check, but you don't get it apostilled. Also a problem. Or you get the FBI criminal check, you get it apostilled, but you don't get it translated by an official translator, but just some translation company in the US that knows Czech. But if they don't have the round stamp and like the Czech colored ribbons, that's gonna be useless. So, and that's just like one document, one part of it. So very likely you will make some mistakes and it will take you even longer. So you should kind of plan with that. But generally the preparation phase, collecting documents, 1 to 3 months. Then submitting the application. That again depends, and it can be somehow linked to preparing the documents, but it depends on the embassy where you apply, because for most embassies, and now let's leave out the Czech embassies in the US because they are special. So in any other country outside of the US, you need to book an appointment with the Czech embassy in advance, and then it depends on the embassy how much in advance. So for example, Dresden, generally 3 to 4 weeks, depends on the season, depends on the type of visa or residence permit you're applying, but let's say 3 to 4 weeks in advance. London might be 1 to 2 weeks, Dublin might be 1 week. In the US, since they usually don't want you to go in person and you're mailing the documents, that kind of hard to estimate how long it takes to deliver your documents there, how long they will take to review the documents. And then again, it depends. If there was some problem with your application, they would mail everything back to you, and then you just need to fix it, and then you mail it back to them. It's kind of stupid, because if you go there in person, they just tell you this is incorrect, this is incorrect, this is incorrect, come tomorrow, have it fixed, you can submit the application again. If you mail it to them, it's just so inefficient, but what can you do? So submitting your application from 1 week to a month, depending on the situation. Then waiting for approval. That's the worst part, because usually people ask me this almost during any consultation, every consultation I do, like how long it will take. For most people, how long it takes to get approved. Czech system does not really work like that. It can be anything. Like, first, it depends on the type of visa or residence permit you're applying for. Student visa should be decided within 60 days. Employee card, 60 to 90. Business visa, 90 to 120. So there are some official timelines for that given by the law. In real life, though, the ministry does not really care. So we've had applications approved from, I think the shortest we've ever had was 10 days. But the longest, sky is the limit. Or eternity is the limit. Usually, like, if it takes long, we can take some steps and usually can make things moving. But I know of cases that have been ongoing for a year, year and a half, 2 years. Depends. Obviously, you can influence it a bit, and then there are factors that influence that as well, like the season, the embassy where you apply, if they have to send the documents to the Czech Republic or not. But there is no number that works for everyone. It can be anything between 2 weeks, 3 months for most people, I would say. So to give you something, count with 2 months. If it's faster, great. If it takes longer, don't be surprised. So like roughly around 2 months, but can be different. Tall guy. So what's the meaning of preliminary access positively? That means you've been approved. They just had to change the wording for some, to me, unknown reasons. It was just approved, denied, in process. Now it's preliminary assessed positively or preliminary assessed negatively. Just wording, so you cannot use it against them that they tell you you've been approved and then they deny it because you did something wrong, whatever. So approved, congratulations. And after approval, there are still some steps you need to take after you get approved. So this might be also maybe tall guy important for you. And again, it depends on what type of visa or residence permit you applied for. Generally, if you applied for a visa, the main thing you need to do is to go to the foreign police within 3 days after your arrival. If you applied for a business visa, it gets a bit more complicated because the visa is related to your trade license, to the freelancing license. So you need to go to the foreign police, get a special confirmation from them, and then take it to the trade license office so they can activate your trade license. So you can actually start running the business. But for most visas, it's just going to the foreign police within 3 days, report. If you apply for a residence permit, so for example, the employee card, blue card, or a student residence permit, potentially family reunification residence permit, so you will be getting a card, not just a visa in your passport. There are more steps to take, but the main thing is that you will need to go to the Ministry of the Interior. They will take your fingerprints, they will take your photo and digitalize your signature. And then a couple weeks later, you will receive the actual card. So depending on what you applied for, it will take some more time. And also for all applications, basically, when you go collect something from the embassy, so the approved visa or the entry visa, whatever, you also need to have a local Czech health insurance. So you hear from the embassy that you've been approved. You need to get health insurance, then you go to the embassy to get the visa into your passport, then you come to the Czech Republic, and then there might be some steps which I've just talked about. Oh. Okay, so this is kind of the main part. If any Americans are watching still, Lynn, maybe, ask your questions. I'll be happy to answer them. But I now will also talk a bit about the cost you should count with and maybe some like practical things you might not have heard of or might not have thought of, I guess. Yeah, so budget realistically. Yeah, this is a big thing. Moving countries is expensive. I don't know. It depends on your situation, but it costs money because you need to count with buying the flight tickets, potentially like the cost of the documents, because even if you do it on your own, like the whole process, you don't hire an agency to help you with the application, then there will still be costs. You will need to ship documents back and forth. Some of the documents you will need to get the proof of accommodation, for example, you'll need to pay for that, translations, the application fee at the embassy, all that. It will still cost money. It might potentially cost you more if you like mess something up and then you have to do it a couple times or eventually end up hiring someone to help you anyway. But even if it works perfectly the first time, there will still be cost related to just the documents itself or documents themselves and the actual process. But the flight tickets also, then the health insurance, depending on what you applied for, you might need health insurance just for 2 months or for a full year in advance. Then moving into an apartment in the Czech Republic, you should count with at least 2 to 4 monthly rents to just enter a lease agreement, because you generally need to pay first month rent, 1 or 2 monthly rents deposits, and then 1 monthly rent as a real estate fee or a real estate agent fee. So at least 2 to 4 monthly rents for entering a lease agreement. Then there are also small things like the flat might be missing like utensils or some small things. You will want to buy something. You will need to buy maybe some different clothes, different shoes. If you're not used to walking every day, you will start in Prague or in the Czech Republic in general. So you might need a different shoes than what you're used to. So there will be a lot of like small costs as well. And you also need to show, for most applications, you need to show that you have enough money in your bank account. For the business visa, it's the highest amount, and that's roughly $8,000. It's equivalent to 160,000 crowns. So say roughly $8,000. And that's kind of ideally after all the spending. For a lot of people, it doesn't work like that. They have just the 8,000 they need and then they spend it all when they move here. That's an option as well, a bit tricky because if the ministry finds out, that could be a problem. But yeah, but generally you should have like $8,000 in your account after you pay for everything. That would be the best case scenario. Now, moving physical stuff from the US, well, from my perspective, not really recommended. Just pack 2 suitcases and come with that, because shipping anything internationally, and especially if it's things like guns, almost impossible, I would say. Or if it's cars, even like US cars are not suited for driving on like EU like streets or whatever roads. So you would need to, even if you like transport the car here, you would still need to change a lot of things like the lights and all that and have it like checked, and maybe you rechecked a couple times before you can start actually using it here. So that's not really recommended either, unless it's your beloved car you bought when you were 18 and now you've had it for 50 years. Maybe that's worth the trouble, otherwise not really. Yeah, one thing you should count with as well is temporary housing. Because if you come here, you could potentially find a place to live online from the US. But it will be very complicated. Again, depends on your budget, your requirements. If you have like above average budget, it's more realistic than if you have like a standard budget. But finding something from the US is very difficult. First, the landlords prefer meeting you in person. It might take some days for you to transfer the money, the deposit, the first rent. There might be like exchange rate or conversion like complications. Plus, you will anyway need physically signed lease agreement. So you would probably first sign something electronically, and then you would need to get the documents re-signed physically as well. So you could do it, but most people do it the way that they come here, find a place to live when they're here, and then they use it for their visa application. Or if you use the virtual proof of accommodation, then you do this anyway once you get approved and you come here to look for a real place to live anyway. But you should count with at least 10 to 14 days in some temporary housing, so Airbnb or Booking or hotels, whatever, because it takes time to find something to live in Prague. It's the landlord's market, so it's not an easy time for tenants. What we also, or what a lot of Americans we work with have trouble with, or there are some complications with that, is phone numbers or your SIM cards. Ideally, bring the SIM card with you because you might need it for like confirming payments, for example. And if your bank needs to send you a text message to confirm something or to log into your online banking or whatever, and you no longer have a US number, that could be a problem. And this might be related to other things as well. So I would definitely recommend keeping the number for at least a bit. Obviously depends if you can like cancel the plan later and how to do that, if you can do it from the Czech Republic, all that. But if you can keep the number for a bit, then of course get a local one, because it will make your life easier in the Czech Republic. You will need it for interviews or your friends or calling anywhere basically, or your local bank account or your local internet provider, whatever. So you will need it at some point anyway, but ideally at least for the first couple weeks before you get settled, the US one would be useful as well. And then now, like opening a bank account, okay, that's a bit of a topic. Generally, you can open a bank account if you already hold a visa. It used to be very easy to open a bank account even if you came here as a tourist using the 90 days visa-free stay, but most banks do not do that anymore to prevent money laundering, all that kind of stuff. So they will open you a bank account, that's not a problem, but only once you get the visa approved and once it's in your passport. And then 3 kind of tips maybe for you. 3 things you should start doing right away if you want to have a good experience or great experience in the Czech Republic. First is, or maybe like before you even move here, think about international taxes. Because if you're moving here and then your only income will be from the Czech Republic, that's easy, straightforward. But if you have still some income in the US, like you will be renting out your house or apartment in the US, so you will have this kind of income. Or if you have some investments, or if you have like online business and you will be splitting the incomes between the Czech Republic and the US, whatever, then you should ideally consult an accountant or a tax advisor in very early stages so you don't end up in some surprise that the US government will want something from you, or the Czech government will want something from you which you were not prepared to provide. So one thing. Second, I would definitely recommend starting to learn Czech, at least basics, but like really make it one of the must-dos, because it will help you a lot in the short term, because you come into the country where Czech is the primary language, and all the offices, all the governmental offices, all the shops, everyone will speak Czech to you. Of course, people speak English as well, and especially in Prague, you can survive with English, but the important word is survive. You will never really blend in properly if you don't speak Czech. So yeah, you can, like, I know people who've been living here for 10 years and like cannot say two like reasonable sentences in Czech, and they are still here after 10 years and all is good, but it will limit your options a lot. And kind of related to that is get some local friends. And okay, one more thought there, because also knowledge of Czech language will be needed later on anyway for the permanent residence permit and for citizenship as well, if you think that much ahead. So you will need to know for immigration purposes the Czech language as well. So for your daily life, proper integration, but also for the immigration purposes in the long run. And the third thing would be get local friends. It's generally pretty simple because we love going out, drinking beer, meeting people, especially in Prague and Brno, potentially. So it should not be much of a problem. Czechs might come by a bit difficult to make friends with, but once you do, they're friends for life. So definitely start working on that as well, because I mean, if you only stick to the expat bubble, you will be going always to the same like farmers markets and all the like the festivals where only foreigners go. But if you have like two good Czech friends, they will take you to places and to festivals where like you could not even imagine exist, including their cottages in like small towns outside of Prague where you grill everything for the weekend and you get wasted. So definitely do these three things and you should be great here. Okay, guys, that was way longer than I thought. Of course, if you need any assistance with the whole relocation, we'll be happy to help. We help with visas, we help with accommodation, we help with health insurance, we help with the trade license, setting up businesses, all that. So if you need any help with any of that, we'll be happy to help. But if you have now some questions, I'll be happy to answer them live as well. If not, in 5 minutes, I will finish the live stream because my internet is set the way that at 9:30 it just shuts down. The phone goes into the airplane mode, so I don't end up scrolling videos the whole night. So my internet will be gone in 5 minutes anyway. So if you have questions, now's the time to ask them. Let me see if I can answer some of the other questions as well. Thank you, Jan. Už se učím česky 3 měsíce. Wow! That's cool. Ale pořád to není moc dobré. Do you find English speakers ever speak it well? And I will definitely be reaching out to you. Yeah, of course, we'll be happy to help. Or we can do, I think it would still be, even if you end up not working with us, for example, it will still be good to have a consultation, like as the first step to clarify everything and prepare some roadmap. As for Czech, I mean, it depends, because imagine if you just learn one word every day and you live here for 5 years, then it's quite a good like vocabulary you get after 5 years. So it's not like impossible, it's just about how much you try, given that you can easily stay within the English speaking bubble and like not learn Czech. So that's one thing. As for speaking well, yes, I know some people who speak very like fluently, but the point is not really, you don't have to be perfect, you know. You don't have to like know all the grammar, you don't have to be without an accent, you just need to be efficient enough, and you need to be able to explain what you want to say, and you need to be able to understand what people say. And that can be just like B1 level, just like intermediate, so you will not be perfect, you will have an accent, but it will still be great and it will still contribute to your life greatly in the Czech Republic. So even if you don't make it to perfect, speaking it badly will be great. And it's definitely doable. Like, Czech is tough, but I would say it's primarily tough if you just memorize the grammar, you know? Because I think generally, this is my opinion about learning languages, that we do it in very unnatural way. You know, how kids learn. They listen, repeat, make sense of it, you know, at some point. They first just say, "Pri, table," but then they kind of start understanding and they start speaking. But we, for some reason, focus on grammar. Like, how should I structure it? How is this called? If I put the word here, how is it called? Why the fuck do you need to know that to speak the language, you know? So I think we're just making it unnecessarily complicated and structured, which is not how the brain works. So I think it's completely doable. Okay. I would say we have 1 more minute before my internet shuts down, so I'll be happy to answer one more quick question. Small answer. What was is it possible to get work visa from India? Not really. Like, is it possible, but not very likely. It's very likely that you will be scammed and you will never get a visa, because it's very difficult, especially because of the quotas at the Czech embassy in New Delhi. So be very careful if you're getting a work permit from someone, because if you're from India, it's very unlikely that you will be successful in this. Okay, guys, thank you very much for being here today. Lynn, thank you very much as well. I'm happy it worked out, that you saw the comment and that you joined. Hopefully this was useful. I've done other videos as well, and I will put the link to the article which sums up all this I've been talking about today to the description of the video. And of course, get in touch. We'll be happy to speak and help you out.